Thank you. And we will start with the tribal acknowledgement, which I believe, Jane, you're going to read this morning or this afternoon, whatever it is.
Yep. Let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Thank you. Dave, I understand.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to, tonight, I'd like to read the Pledge of Allegiance for us instead of having us all recite it together, so we don't have the latency that we're all saying it at different times. And I personally will sit with my hand on my heart, and I encourage everybody else to do that, but people should do whatever they feel comfortable doing while I read the Pledge of Allegiance. And so hopefully this won't make so so wild. Okay, Paul, you have that? Okay, we'll look at the flag, Paul. Thank you. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Catherine, can you do the roll call, please?
And David.
Yes, thank you, David.
Sharon.
Here.
Oh,
Thought I wasn't ready for you, Sharon.
Sorry.
Dave Anderson.
Here.
Bill.
here.
Janet.
Here.
Kyle. David Dellendorf. Paul.
Here.
Jane.
Here.
Patty. I see you.
Here.
Tony.
Yep.
Dick.
Here.
Liz. Robert. Kevin.
Here.
Olivia.
Here.
Maureen.
Here.
Anne Marie.
Here.
And Tom.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the minutes, Maureen, when you stepped away, I volunteered you to take over as chair at 5:15 when I have to step away to go get Elsa.
And we all voted for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
The majority vote to make you everything. And any contentious votes or anything, we're going to wait until about 5:20 on the agenda for that. Okay. So we have the minutes from the September 15th meeting. Any changes or additions or issues with those minutes?
I move they be accepted.
Okay. Second, was that Paul on the second? Okay, wonderful. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, chair votes aye, motion's carried. Dick, was that an abstention?
It is just because I had computer issues and I didn't get a chance to read it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the minutes are adopted. So we're going to move on to ranked choice voting, and I'm going to turn that over to Sharon. Actually, before we dive into this, let me say that my hope is that we can finish the ranked choice voting this evening and the public advocate amendments. Both of those will be on the 2022 ballots, along with the other amendments that we went through in the last meeting, and actually the last two meetings that Commissioner O'Connell brought forward. Following that, if we can get through those tonight, that'd be wonderful. If not, we will schedule another meeting. We will probably need to have another meet, at least one more meeting, however, regardless, just to go over a resolution. I sent out an email to the full commission, I think 2 weeks ago now, where I went into some detail with regard to Sharon, can you mute? You have.
Oh, sorry.
You're an incredibly quick typist, but it's also loud.
I understand.
Okay. I put some detail with regard to a scenario that I threw out there. And I'm hoping that not hearing from any of you is a positive. Maybe you liked what I put out there, but I really didn't get much feedback. But just to recap, what I threw out there, actually, I got feedback from a few of you. But what I put out there was that we would finalize the amendments that we have, which, so what I believe we have left is only ranked choice voting and then the public advocate. And we already finalized our recommendations, I believe. And the other amendment that's going to be on the 2022 ballot that Bob brought forward. And then we will finalize a resolution. And the actions that will come out of the commission in the final weeks will be that there will be a letter to the county council with the final amendments. There will be a letter to the county council with their recommendations, actually county council and the auditor. I believe one of the recommendations goes to the auditor. And then there would be a resolution, and the resolution would recap all of our work. So the 6 amendments we put up for 2021, the 3 amendments for 2022, and our recommendations, and that would conclude our work. So what we would do is we would submit those at the same time, and we would say that we are concluding our work by turning in our final recommendations in accordance with Section 9 of the current charter. So that is the proposal that I laid out, actually in response to a email from Commissioner Barnell, kind of saying, hey, how are we concluding this? And it made me think, wow, we better lay out some ideas. So that I believe is about what I articulated in the email. And so Bob, I see you have a hand up. I was going to say, before we dive into these last 2 amendments, maybe we make sure folks, I want a sense from folks on how they feel about that scenario for our final work. So Commissioner O'Connell.
I like the scenario. One thing that I would like to put out there is that we may want to delay deciding that we are finished and notifying the council of that until after the election, which is what, 4 weeks from now, something like that. For this reason, it is possible that an important proposition of ours may be rejected by the electorate. And if that happens, it may be that we would want to cover the subject with something that we would find more palatable to the electorate in 2022. I'm not saying that would necessarily proceed from that, but it might. And in the case that it might, I'm just suggesting that we wait until after we see the results of the election.
So one other person, actually not on the commission, raised that with me, and I will give you the same response I gave them, which is, I think we should do our work in a diligent manner and conclude it when we are done. And we shouldn't let the election sway that in one way or another. We should come up with the best ideas that we think we're putting forward and put them forward. And then hopefully they pass. With what I'm hearing in the street, I'm feeling confident about the ones we put forward so far. That said, no, actually, full stop. So I guess, Commissioner O'Connell, I'm disagreeing with you that we should allow the election to have influence on our workload. What I would say is that I think most likely we have, unfortunately, a few more weeks worth of work, because I don't believe we're going to conclude today. And I know several people, including myself, have to travel over the next 2 weeks. So the earliest we'd be getting together for a next meeting would be 2 to 3 weeks out. And so we may end up being in a situation where we're past November. But I, for one, do not feel that the election should sway our workload. I think that we should include our work in as expedited of a manner as we can, while still making sure it's good. So I want to get everything done that we need to get done and take the time that we need to do that, and not let other matters like the election influence us, is my feeling on that. Bill?
I'm going to be open about this, Kevin. You and I have discussed this. I have a serious concern that if the environmental proposal goes down, and in my personal view, that's the single most important element of our body, that we have a backup. I've proposed one. I'm not proposing it here. It's not on the agenda, but I would like the whole body to decide the issue of what we do after the election.
Okay, so that's fine. 2 things. we're right on the edge of, I think it's appropriate for us to talk about our work and what would influence our work in the same way that the county council listened to us and created an environmental department because we had a good idea. And so then we reacted by saying, well, great idea, let's make it stronger. And so we changed our recommendation. That was an outside influence, just like the election. So it's appropriate for us to think about those things. And Bill and Bob, you're both making good points. I think we need to be careful that we not talk about the advocacy for an election or anything at all. So we've submitted those 6. If we want to talk about how important they are, we should do that not as a CRC body, but as individual commissioners working for 1 or 6 individual amendments or in opposition to those amendments. But that is not a matter for discussion this evening. And so I'm not saying either of you were there, but I think I just want to caution us all to remember that that's not part of our agenda at all. So I think what we're saying, though, what I was trying to say to you is that I think we've probably got at least a few weeks work regardless. And that's just the reality of the situation we're in because of people's travel and because of the workload that we have. So I think we're there, and we should take a look at what other issues need to come up. The other thing I will say is that there were a few issues that came up where people said, well, maybe that should be a 2022 amendment, and they haven't come up since. And so I asked the question 3 meetings back, are there any other amendments that people think we should consider? Because we have that ability still to think of new ideas. Now, I know I will put myself in this place as well, that I'm kind of fried and would like to be done. And so if people come in with another 5 amendments, I'm going to want to run for the doors. But if there are important things that we need to consider, or if there are outside factors that influence our work, then we should definitely discuss those. So is that I know it's kind of long-winded, but I'm trying to get a lot out there.
Point of clarification, Kevin. I just want to say that my proposal is that we won't be discussing the election because we won't be discussing what I'm suggesting until after the election. We won't be discussing an election. So I think that's moot.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Dick and then Jane.
I propose we wait until we get there and get on with the agenda.
Jane?
I just had one matter that relates to possible future business, and I spoke to you about it already, Kevin, and it's whether or not we discuss this at the end of the meeting as part of new business as something that may be a finishing piece of work as well. I don't know if I can just mention what that is, and then just so that you're aware of it before you have to step off the meeting. Can I just mention that? Or not, put it on new business for another meeting, or mention it on new business.
Go ahead and mention it and we'll put it on for new business.
Okay, so
Just
it's
the title, not.
Sorry, yeah, so it's simply the issue of, with regard to our recommendations and whether or not this body would like to take the opportunity to sort of have a meeting to present our recommendations to the county council prior to the completion of our business, or whether we just present them in writing.
Yeah, so we can discuss that a little bit under new business. I actually think that that's a longer topic that we should put as a
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
And so, Catherine, can you make a note of that for our next agenda, that we'll want to have a discussion of future conversations with the county council?
Certainly.
Thank you. Okay. Patty, did I see your hand up? No, okay. And let the record show that Commissioner Lafferty has joined us as well. Okay, with that, can we move into ranked choice voting?
Please.
Okay, okay. Sharon, you're up.
Okay, thanks. So I did send that out, but I'm going to share the screen. And let me know if everybody can see it okay. Give me just a second here. Oh, wait a minute. I have to go back here and do that. Okay, and then we have, here we go. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the final ranked choice voting amendment. And as you might expect, everything added to what's already in the charter is underlined. I can go ahead and read the whole thing or what's underlined, or we can launch into discussion. What should I do?
I guess I was just gonna ask you to feed the kitties, but I'll do that. Never mind.
Okay, well, in addition to feeding the kitties, I think that Sharon, it's been a while since we discussed this as a full commission, so I think it would be helpful if you summarized the changes, but just summarize them and then
Okay.
what questions people have and what thoughts people have.
Okay, so basically what we voted on previously, what we approved was we're going to propose putting ranked choice voting into our charter now, and it would not go into effect until ranked choice voting legislation is passed on the state level. So, which could happen next year or the year after or the year after that. We're really not sure, but there is going to be at least one piece of legislation about ranked choice voting in the next legislative session. And there was just last week, there was a 3-session workshop for all of the auditors in the state. I honestly don't know how many attended, but I think there were well over 100 people that attended those workshops. And from what I heard, they went very well. So this is what we're proposing to do, is to put ranked choice voting into our charter to be activated when it passes on the state level. Is there anything else you'd like me to say about that at this point? So that's what we've added, basically that language. Oh, and there is one other point here. And the one other point is that when you have ranked choice voting, you have the option to combine the general election and the primary into one election. And that would be nice in terms of efficiency and saving the county money. However, if say the local options bill passes in the state legislature, that means that we could use ranked choice voting for all local elections, but we would still need to have a primary because we would still need it for state elections and federal elections. But say ranked choice voting passed, and we wanted to, on the local level, and we wanted to say, great, we can do this now. And we wouldn't be able to eliminate a primary, as I just stated, right away. But if there was a point at which we could eliminate a primary, we would, all of our offices would then, it really wouldn't, right now we have all our nonpartisan offices, except for one, and the one partisan office that we have on the county level is the prosecuting attorney. So what this language does is that won't make a difference once we get ranked choice voting passed. So there's language indicating that the prosecuting attorney would no longer be, partisan as opposed to nonpartisan. And that's really the only other change besides just adding ranked choice voting to the charter. Not sure I communicated that as best I could. So yeah, Bob, you have a question?
Right. Sharon, as you know, I'm very much in favor of ranked choice voting. I'll say that at the outset, but I do have a question that you can probably answer easily. Why do we need a provision like this if we're going to be waiting for the legislature to establish ranked choice voting in the first place?
Well, the thinking behind it is it will then be in our charter. It'll be in our charter ready to go, because if it's a local options bill, then we'd like to be able to launch it at the local level. So we're saying we want it in this county. We're putting it in our charter because we want it in this county. And then when it gets passed on the state level in whatever form it does, because it could end up being local level only, it could end up being presidential only. It'd be nice if we had like one comprehensive, bill that had just RCV for everything, but we don't have that right now. So this just says we want it in our county and we're going to put it into effect as soon as it gets passed in some form on the state level.
And Karen, just to clarify, that last point you made is the main point that I remember from our initial discussions and from what we heard from all the different people we heard from on this subject, which was what we voted for, if I remember, was, and I don't remember the exact motion, but the gist of the motion was that we would be putting forward ranked choice voting as an amendment. And if it passed by the people this November, it would automatically go into effect in San Juan County the moment it was authorized by the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we'll want to see, you know, what the state recommendations are, and then there may be some decision making at that point about exactly how we want to implement it, but we'll be,
But it will be,
You know-
we'll be implementing ranked choice voting if this were to pass this November, the second.
yeah,
Shortly after the legislature makes it appropriate.
yes.
Okay.
Because there was some concern expressed that, well, if we just start to use ranked choice voting on the local level and we don't have anything in place on the state level, it might get too confusing,
Yeah.
having what we're doing and then what the state is doing. And yes, Janet.
Thank you. So this amendment is for November of 2022, correct?
Yes, correct.
What happens if the state passes ranked choice voting prior to that? Do we still go ahead with this? Or will other people be
Oh, yeah.
pursuing? Well, I mean, will other people be pursuing ranked choice voting in the county prior to this amendment?
I can,
Kevin, go ahead, Kevin.
so a couple points. Most likely, if it were to pass during the session next year, which I'm not sure it will, but if it did, it still wouldn't even go into effect until June. There've been a couple versions under discussion in Olympia. One bit of language that got traction with some key players down there was basically authorizing local governments to move forward on it. So it wasn't saying the entire state was going to do it. It was saying if your county or city wanted to do it, you may.
Right.
So if something like that were to pass, it would still take a few months after session before the governor would sign the bill. And then there would be a bit of rulemaking that would take another bit of time. So my point is, I think if this were to go into effect in 2022 here, it would probably be very timely with that. It probably wouldn't be able to go into effect much sooner, even if people wanted to move it for a citizens initiative, it would probably be on the same ballot because you before that. I think what is more likely, unfortunately, for everyone enthusiastic about ranked choice voting is it's probably 2 years out in Olympia, from what I understand, just because there's a lot piled up in the agenda. So, but regardless, for the next year, it would be a while.
Yeah, it didn't get a hearing last year, so we'll see. Hoping it will get a hearing this year, but we're not sure. And that bill that Kevin was referring to is the local options bill that was introduced last year but didn't get a hearing. So just to reiterate the point about the prosecuting attorney, really, I don't think it matters. And I've gone back and forth about this with a couple of different people. You know, initially we said, wow, you know, if we wanted to have an election that was a combined primary and general election, the one office that would be preventing us from doing that at this point would be the prosecuting attorney, because if we had all nonpartisan elections except for one office being the prosecuting attorney, then we'd still have to have a primary for just that one office. But really, we would be needing to have a primary anyway, as long as we were still using a traditional method of voting for state elections and for federal elections, even if we decided to start implementing ranked choice voting on the local level. But I put this language in there because it seemed that we should recognize that right now we have all nonpartisan races except for one. And if the situation evolved into such that we could combine a primary and a general election, if we didn't have one office that was partisan,
Right.
then we'd want to account for that. And
Sharon, hang on. There's a couple people have their hands up. I want to.
okay, I'm sorry. Oh, is that a Bill?
I've got Bill, I've got Tony, and then
I have two quick comments. One is, I'm going back to what we've already adopted in that sub 2 and what everybody is looking at when Washington state law provides. I think we are presuming, I have to say I've practiced 50 years of Murphy's Law first before I get to Washington law. And I would say if and when Washington state law, that's small. The larger issue is this. We don't know how the legislature is going to talk about this. When the legislature passes authorizations to counties, it often says, as the legislative body may determine. We cannot determine for the legislative body. It is possible. You have to remember, I've only been in business for half a century because of bad outcomes. And one bad outcome would be putting this in the charter and having the legislature say, as the legislative body may determine. Now, this means this language is ineffectual unless and until the county authorizes it. They cannot be directed to if they're given that discretion. I just want to say that as a warning. I'm really, you can tell that I'm cautious. That's my job, but I think it's a problem. It could be a serious problem here.
so, okay. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what Bill just said, but that was not what I was going to talk about. I think this whole language in this amendment recommendation, first of all, I'm not sure we can do an amendment recommendation for 2022, but let's set that aside for a second. I think this language is a bit, I know Sharon has worked on this for a long time, and I think, this is fine, but the language might be premature because we don't know what the state is going to do. If we are, if we're going to move forward with putting something forward, I think just say that, ranked choice voting would be implemented by whatever the instructions the state has, and call it good for whenever that happens. It would seem to me that some of this in this language could be very hard to implement if the state comes up with something different than this language.
Well, there's nothing specifying any particular bill. I just want to just say that. And also this would be voted, yes.
Let me get through a couple other people and then I'll call back on you as well.
Okay.
Is that okay? Just
yeah, I just hope I remember everything I want to say, but that's okay. I'll mute myself if I want to type anything.
Write notes. Dick, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think this is premature and unnecessary. And we don't know what the legislature will do. We don't know if, they could decide it's just for state offices. It could be local option. I just don't see the need to do this now. We can wait until the state authorizes it, see what the legislation looks like. If it is local option, then it can be discussed and debated. I don't see the point at this point, and I can't support it.
Okay, so I would remind everybody that we already voted on this, that we were going to move forward with ranked choice voting, and it was a pretty large vote. And
it wasn't a large vote.
Thank you, Tony. And so it was a majority of the commission plus several. This was to be the language that was going to clarify, that was going to be finalized, that we were looking at. I have told Sharon that I do think that this language is substantial enough of a change from what was before us that we should vote on it again. So I was hoping for action on this evening in the form of a vote. But I just wanted to remind folks that we have already voted on this. The other thing I was going to say, sorry, Bill, to contradict you directly, but as someone who has written directly a whole bunch of state legislation that authorizes local government to do X, Y, and Z, I will tell you that I disagree that a majority of them defer to the legislative body. Many do, but many do not. And I think there's several ways to do that. And I will also be frank that in Olympia, if it's something we think, well, I'm not even going to get into that. But I would just say that there's all sorts of different language. And I think that the paragraph that Sharon has put forward here does not overly prescribe the function of putting it in place. So I have Tom, and then did somebody else have their hand up? Bill, you put.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to be sure that the minority opinion, which was expressed, moves along with this. And if I could read it again, I have 7 points, but I won't do that. But I want to be sure that several of us who are avidly against this, that our point of view is carried forward.
Yeah, and so just like your minority report that you did with the 6, I would expect that you would probably put forward language for the 3 that would go forward as well. And that is absolutely not only your prerogative, but all of us are independently elected and have the obligation to make sure that our voices are heard. And please let me know if I'm not letting all voices be heard. I'm trying to. So I would hope that in a formal way at the end of the process as well, when others are put forward. Bill, did you have your hand up a second time?
Two quick things. First, Kevin, in response to the chair's comments, I do have to say, you write them, I read them. And I think the next topic that comes up, this same topic will be relevant. I also think that drafting anything that assumes anything that the legislature will in fact do is a very risky step. The problem we now have, if this amendment that's proposed in this body right now does not pass, we know we've got something that is probably not lawful. I leave it there, but what we've done, as you've pointed out, is we've approved something, but it's not final. The prosecutor has pointed out some problems. We've sought to cure those problems. If we don't cure those problems, we have a defective piece of work going forward.
Okay, thank you. Others? Okay, Sharon, did you want to respond? You had a couple things points you wanted to make.
Yeah, the main thing I want to say is that with the exception of making the prosecuting attorney's office nonpartisan, Randy approved this language.
Yeah, that was my understanding originally as well, I believe. So, and the other thing is, Randy doesn't have to approve our language. Randy gives us legal advice that we would be wise to follow, and some of it we do our own research and have other conclusions as well. So on this, I know that the prosecutor did raise some concerns about the nonpartisan police. And I believe, did I see an AGO opinion saying that absolutely the prosecutor can be nonpartisan?
Yes.
Okay, so we have an attorney general, an AGO is an attorney general opinion that says the prosecuting attorney, that the charter can, it was specific to that question actually as well. Randy had raised concerns about whether or not the prosecuting attorney of a county government could be nonpartisan if that decision could be done through the charter. And there actually is an attorney general opinion, I believe it was in regard to Pierce County, that came back, maybe it wasn't Pierce, I think it was Pierce though, that came back and said that a charter can in fact make the prosecuting attorney nonpartisan. So we know that we have clarity on that.
2015.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Is it Pierce or King?
That doesn't matter much, but we know we have an
Yeah.
AGO saying from 2015 that a charter can make a prosecuting attorney nonpartisan. Were there other issues that were raised by the prosecutor or others, and I'm asking this kind of Sharon and Bill, that we think need to be addressed in this?
No, we originally had something much longer than this, and the prosecuting attorney came back with something much simpler, and I can show you exactly. I mean, it'd probably take me a minute or two to find it, but I could bring up exactly what Randy sent me, which
Okay. Yeah,
is basically this, because you just made it a lot simpler, left out a lot of details, and this just seemed to cover it okay. And
okay. So let's go back. We have Dave Anderson had his hand up.
Yes.
can I say one more thing about what we were just discussing? I'm sorry, Dave. Just want to say, I mean, if you want to make a friendly amendment to change this to if and when rather than when Washington's, I mean, I think that'd be okay.
I think that's actually a good suggestion, but
Mhm.
but you can make that edit, and then when we vote on a final, if it passes, we can accept that. Dave Anderson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. When we passed this originally, I was kind of under the impression that we are putting this out there as an invitation to the legislature to move this idea forward. This has been an issue in Olympia for, I think, well over 20 years. And we wanted the legislature to know that this is an issue that we are interested here in San Juan County. And I don't know, but if this language goes forward, if the legislature actually passes something, wouldn't that language supersede what we have here? Because doesn't the legislature have more control over elections than the state law have more control over elections than county law? But I mean, I think this is not to jump in front of the legislature, but to invite the legislature that this is something that we want to see here in San Juan County. And I definitely still support it. And thank you, Sharon, for moving it forward.
To your point, Dave, I think you're touching on, I believe, some of what Bill was mentioning as well, which is something could come down from the state, from the legislature, that would impact this in a different way or influence this in a different way. And at that time, the county would be required to amend the charter if necessary. Although I actually see this language as vague enough that it could be encompassing of just about anything coming down from the legislature. I'm not sure where the big issues are there, but the actual implementation of ranked choice voting in San Juan County would have to be within line with state statute. So whatever they say, and if it says, to Bill's point, if it says the legislative authority may implement, then the county council in San Juan County would have to implement. I believe they would have a mandate, however, from their charter to do so. And there have been ordinances and charter amendments in the past that have influenced individual elected bodies, not necessarily an individual vote, but they have had influence like that. I just saw another hand come up. Is that Bob?
I just wanted to suggest that the only instance where I see this proposition relevant is if it's an options bill that gets passed. And if it seems like it's quite likely to be that, and don't misunderstand my comment, I am very much for this proposition. That's all.
The other thing I would say is everyone will recall, this originally came to us after our town halls. We had several people at the town halls, and then several people started coming to meetings. It's unfortunate I don't see them here this evening. But there were dozens of people in San Juan County who asked us to address this. So this is a direct response to the citizens too. And I think that's important. It's valuable for us to remember that. Bill, did you have another comment?
I just said this would be more appropriate as a recommendation. We really don't know what's going to happen. We're absolutely certain we know what's going to happen, but we don't know. And this is the thicket. What we are really doing is making a recommendation. And I think we should state it as a recommendation rather than having something stuck in our charter that the statute supersedes.
Is that a motion, Bill?
Thank you.
Well, my motion would be in the form of voting against the amendment, but yes, I hereby make it a motion, making this a recommendation.
Second?
There's a motion and a second on the table. I wish you guys would allow discussion. There's two more hands, but okay. There's a motion and a second on the table under discussion. I'm going to go back to the other hands and see if they're relevant to this motion, which they must be because the motion is to change this to a recommendation. So I have Anne Marie and then Liz.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask if it was appropriate to move the amendment forward,
It would have
the
been,
measure. Yeah,
yeah.
right. I know because of what he did. That's fine.
yeah. So I was about to call on you when that happened. So if this motion fails, then we can go back to that one. Liz, you have your hand up?
And I was just going to say, since we've already voted on this, why are we continuing the motion? But it's already on the table, so I withdraw.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, so let's, Dick and then Jane.
I have a question. Does this not constitute a reconsideration of the original motion? And if that's the case, doesn't Bill have to have been one of the people who voted in the affirmative?
That's actually a really good point.
I believe that's the case. And I don't remember how Bill voted, but if he voted against the original motion, I don't believe he can make a motion for reconsideration.
I'm not moving for, this is not a motion for reconsideration. It's a motion for reclassification.
Bill, come on, that's splitting hairs. In effect, it's a motion to reconsider because it would do away with the original action.
I actually would tend to agree with Bill, with Dick on this, Bill. I didn't consider that when you first put your motion on the floor, but there was already a vote to move this forward. And so right now we are moving this forward. The vote tonight was to clarify the language that we are moving forward, but there was a vote that we are putting ranked choice voting on the ballot. We can go back and read that motion if we need to.
Point of order then. I would happily withdraw my motion. Anyone else can make it because the motion is not invalid. It's the maker of the motion who has been declassified.
And I'm on your side, Bill, but I think we got to do things legally.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Richard, can you back up your statement there and tell me where that's coming from in Robert's rules?
Oh, I can't quote you section.
Well,
but you actually in Robert's rules, you cannot, the only people who can move for reconsideration of a motion are those who voted in favor of the original motion.
That's correct.
That is correct.
That is not correct.
And you're good on Robert. Go ahead, and then you and I can debate this.
Tony.
May I just say, Mr. Chair, the reconsideration of a motion is only effective during the day of that election, of that voting, not weeks later. Weeks later is a reconsideration of the motion or rescinding of the motion that happened before. So to reconsider something has to happen in the same day, not months later. So this is a rescinding of an original vote. So the motion could still stand as a rescinding of the original vote and then have another vote happen.
There you go.
Not there you go. We're going to find Robert's rules, and if we have to, we suspend this discussion because we're going to do it right. And I don't mean that to be blunt. I just want to make sure we get this right. So I'm looking up Robert's rules now. If somebody else can take over,
Mr. Chair, I have a question while you're looking that up. Maybe somebody else has an answer, but I mean,
you were next, and I had another hand and I missed it, so I apologize.
That was my hand. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I proceed?
Please.
Yeah, no, I'm unclear though, because given the nature of this proposed amendment that's under discussion that we had agreed previously would be voting on at a subsequent meeting, which is this one, how can this become a recommendation given the content of the proposed amendment? How can we recommend to the county council that they adopt ranked choice voting when this in fact implies a change to the charter? So I'd appreciate Commissioner Apple explaining that. Thank you.
The charter, the council itself can propose an amendment to the charter. We've been through that most recently. That is not a problem.
So you're saying, Bill, that it doesn't need to go before the electorate, that the county council itself can decide to adopt ranked choice voting? Is that what you're saying?
No, the charter amendment process, and it's in the charter, is that the commission can put to the people and vote on it. It doesn't have to be drafted now. If the state passes a statute enabling this, and the county council thinks it's a good idea, the county council can then propose a charter amendment that provides for it. That's how it would be done.
Very
Okay.
logical.
Are you saying the county council then would put it to the public, the voting public for a vote, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the difference there, and sorry, I'm not looking at you, I'm trying to read at the same time, is that we are elected every 10 years to review and make recommendations or propose changes to the charter, whereas the county council can do it at any given time, but it still has to go to a vote of the people.
That's right.
Commissioner O'Connell.
I believe that whoever said it, I don't know whether it's Paul or somebody else, was correct in that motion to reconsider has to be made on the same day. I just looked at the rules and
Yes.
that's what it says.
That's
Tony-
what I said.
Tony said that.
Yeah. That's not the conclusion I wanted it to say, but that's what it said.
Rescinding can happen later.
That's
But-
that is accurate. You can't do a reconsideration on the same day. I'm just trying to, it's you reconsider or amend something. You can do that later. Sharon, I'll get to you in 1 second. I'm trying to find out if it still needs to be somebody who originally voted in favor, and I don't think it does. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to say that we made this an amendment to go to the voters to vote on based on support for it in the county. That's why we're putting forward an amendment for the voters to vote on. It's a more democratic system of voting.
Okay, you're making an
I-
argument.
I know Paul's laughing, but Paul, I know we are not consuming the same media. I know that.
Yes, you're right about that.
That's right. But we could talk more about that. In fact, I really would like to talk with you more about that. Wish I had already. Yeah, Kevin, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, who else? Did somebody else have a hand up? Okay. Who? Patty's pointing. No? Okay.
Bill.
Bill, did you have something else?
So I have a question.
Please.
Bill, did you rescind your motion or not?
He technically did, but he did under, I will say, false pretenses. So,
So where do we stand?
but I am just trying to see, there is a thing that says the vote required, which is determined by whether there has been previous notice of the motion is within rules of or Robert's rules. And so I'm trying to find out if to rescind this, we needed to have a notice that we were going to consider rescinding a previous motion. And that's the clarification I'm trying to look into now. Because it says it in Robert's rules. So I'm now trying to find out what they meant by that. So sorry, guys, we're taking more time on this than I desired, but I do think it's important we get this right. So I need to keep reading this if somebody else, maybe we want to move on. What if we did this? What if we moved on to if we pause consideration of ranked choice voting, and then I would need Bill, because you have a motion on the table to do this. You would need to actually rescind your motion. And then we pause and we move into the discussion of the public advocate position. And let me do a little research here for a couple minutes. Is that okay with folks? Or we can just move forward with the motion. I see a lot of hands. Okay.
Why don't we just,
Comment?
Hang on, I'm gonna go Patty, Bob, Maureen.
Isn't it time for public comment? Exactly.
2 minutes ago.
Why don't we do that?
Okay. Bob, did you have a
Bill?
comment?
The Bill's motion was to reconsider, which is out of order. Because it's not the same day.
No. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, I understand, but Bill could also say I'm changing it. I could put a motion on the table that says I'm rescinding, which would be in order.
Oh, did he do that?
No, he hasn't yet, but let's pause debate on this and let's go to public comment, which I'm still going to need to manage that. So is there anybody here from the public who would like to comment? And if so, please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Nobody. Gordy. Hey, Gordy. Thanks for being here. You're still muted. And if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Gordy Peterson. I see that you're having a real hard time with Robert's rules, but it looks as if you've never really used Robert's rules at all through this whole process. And it's embarrassing, really, to see this
I'm
kind.
not to impugn any commissioners, any individual commissioners, or the commissioner as a whole, the commission as a whole, please. But you can continue, but just please don't impugn anybody when you're making your comments.
I don't believe I was impugning anybody at all. I just see that from the review of the last several months of your Zoom meetings, I don't see that you're using Robert rules at all. By any means, you're using some kind of a false rules of order. But I see that really this is a useless debate on what we're trying to do with ranked choice voting, because you're not going to get this on the ballot unless the council says that they want it. So this is, I think that if you've seen the email that I sent you, and you've seen I just think you're wasting a lot of time when you could actually be doing something productive. I just think that what we really need is to see what Randy's memos have to say, and Randy's memos are being hidden, and I don't understand why that you don't let them out to the public. I think that you're hiding something, and I think that it's wrong, and I think that you need to discuss an issue like that rather than just trying to fumble around with this kind of ranked choice voting thing that's not even on the horizon.
Okay, thank you, Gordy, for your comments. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Any other members of the public? Okay, with that, we will close public comment and go back into ranked choice voting. This is what I have found in Robert's rules. It says that a motion to rescind or amend something previously adopted can be put forward. Once it's on the floor, it can't be interrupted by a speaker. So just as with a normal motion, once you put it on the floor, it can't be interrupted. It is debatable. It can be amended, so you could also have a friendly amendment to a motion to rescind. However, this is something it also says, it requires a 2/3 vote without notice. So the piece of note that where I was saying notice, where if you're going to rescind something, you have to publicly notify, you have to notify the public that you plan on doing this. So we have not done that. So it said, without notice, it requires a 2/3 vote, a majority vote with notice, or a majority of the entire membership with no notice. So I believe that tonight, under that language, it would require a 2/3 vote to rescind, is what I'm reading here. And so if we want to put that on the table, it would require a 2/3 vote. And we had this discussion before, and Paul and Tony correctly pointed out that we have been going by members present with our rules, which also to the previous public speakers, we've been operating under what is called small board rules, which is a version of Robert's rules that's written up. And so we've been going with members present, but by my reading here, I think that this motion to rescind, if Bill, you were to word it that way, would require a 2/3 vote this evening.
Kevin, point of order.
Yeah,
there are three things. It's a majority with notice, 2/3 without notice, and a majority of the entire membership. The majority of my entire membership would be 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Not 12, which is 2/3.
Okay.
Okay.
Kevin?
Yes, Bob.
Are we talking about those numbers, those majorities? Is that the vote required to decide to consider the motion, or is that the vote on the motion?
That would be
it has to pass by that.
Vote on the motion.
Okay, so you don't need any vote to consider it, it just comes up.
You can vote to rescind something.
Okay,
By my reading at any later meeting than it's been put on. As
okay,
pointed out, if it were the same meeting, it would be a motion for reconsideration, and that would have to be done by a person who voted in the majority. A motion to rescind can be put forward by any member of the body, and it must be, as I said, if it's without notice, it's 2/3. It's a majority with notice, or a majority of the entire membership without notice. And so that would go back to the clarification Bill was making. And Bill, I just hadn't counted how many people were here tonight, so I was just throwing it.
Or minus a member.
Yeah. So that, however, Bill, your motion at this point is out of order because you made a motion to reconsider with your language. So the motion, hang on. So if we're going to go back then to the people who had their hands up, I believe Anne Marie was next after that one. But let me go back to my notes. So, well, Anne Marie spoke and said she would have done that. So who else wants to speak to the issue before us of ranked choice voting?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I lost track of where we are. What are we doing?
So we're just back into open discussion. I found Bill's motion just because he said reconsider. His motion was out of order.
Bill, did you say reconsider in your motion?
I did not say reconsider. I said
that's what I remember.
it should be a recommendation. I did
Correct.
not say reconsider. I still feel positive about it. I just don't think it belongs in the charter. I'm not saying it's a bad idea or that we should abandon it. I never said that.
Bill, all I was saying is that you need to use the word rescind for it to be a motion that would be in order under Robert's rules, like I just looked into. So if you want to put the same motion on the table right now and just say rescind, it's totally within order. Okay. Bill, it's just what I just read you from Robert's rules. It's just just how the motion that has to be put forward would be a motion to rescind or amend something previously adopted. That's what would be in order, which is, I'm just trying to suggest to you what I think you meant with your motion. So if somebody else has a motion regarding ranked choice voting they want to put on the floor, I would entertain that.
I would like to move that we accept the amendment as it's been discussed tonight by Sharon.
second,
Okay. You have a motion and a second to accept the language that's been put forward by Commissioner Abreu for ranked choice voting as was discussed at a previous meeting. Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the floor under discussion. No discussion. Okay, Dave.
You made a comment earlier about that making sure that, what was the first comment you made, Kevin, that we were going to make sure Sharon adds in terms of the
if and when.
If and when. Yeah, I'd like to make sure that's a part of the motion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Accepted.
accepted.
Okay, okay. All right. So I would also say that if this motion for the language does not pass, I think that calls into question whether or not there's support for ranked choice voting overall. And then I think we would want to revisit the issue of whether or not this should be rescinded, which again would be the proper motion to put on the table as the only clarification I was trying to make earlier to Bill's point. So with that, I will call the question if I see no further discussion. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hang on, please keep your hands.
Aye.
Please keep your hands up so I can see them. I want to get down the names. Kevin, Sharon, Dave, Janet, Jane, Bob, Liz, Anne Marie. Okay, so here's who I have. I have Sharon, Dave, Jane, Janet, Bob, Liz, Anne, Patty, Is that it? And myself? So I have,
Did you get Anne Marie?
no. Yes, I did. Sorry. Okay, so we have Sharon, Dave, Kevin, Jane, Janet, Bob, Liz, Anne Marie. Is that correct? Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? Okay, all those opposed. I see Tom, Bill, Paul. Tony? No? Okay. Tom, Bill, Paul. Abstentions. Olivia, Dick. Tony. Okay, let me get this again. I have in favor, Sharon, Dave, Kevin, Jane, Bob, Liz, Anne Marie, Patty. Opposed, Tom, Bill, Paul, and abstentions, Olivia, Dick, Tony.
And me.
Maureen, you were an abstention as well? Okay. Okay, under that, we have 9 voting in favor, motion carries. Okay. So with that, I would like to move us on to the public advocate, and I'd like to turn that over to Dave, or who's doing, oh, Sharon, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm getting a little distracted by some of the comments in the chat, and I just think it's so disrespectful of what we're doing here. This is not a manipulative process.
Okay. Well, folks are absolutely able to and lawfully can put forward their opinions, whether we appreciate them or not. So that will likely continue. So,
But Sharon needs to mute because of the keyboard.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Dick. Okay, so who's going to be the lead on public advocate? Dave, is that going to be you?
No, I think it's Maureen. That's definitely Maureen.
Yeah, sorry, Maureen, please go ahead.
Okay, we're going to share this. Paul and Patty and I would like to all share it, but I'll begin. We've all looked at this public advocate business before, and I believe we voted on it. We received a very long legal opinion from Randy over the weekend, but unfortunately, he was addressing the wrong proposal. So we put our heads back to looking at all of what he raised, and we reviewed what we have written, and we would like to stay with what we have written with the addition of another sentence. And I sent it all around and had everyone take a look at it. We think it's solid. This is not about a whistleblower. This is not about anyone that is going to take over an elected person's role. This is someone that I really needed this last Monday when I was going through the website trying to find dates of when we approved a variety of things. And I found myself at 2.5 hours on the website trying to locate things. And it was so cumbersome and difficult. The purpose of this is, well, the suggestion for this began as an ombudsman, but our committee determined that that's not what the county needed, and that it was too severe of a position for the county, since it really is an investigative person. We came up with this as a compromise, and we feel that it is a position. I personally, not everyone agrees, but I think it could even be a volunteer position. But it is someone who can help citizens like me navigate the county website and other areas so that you can find what you're looking for and be directed to the person you most need. And the language in this reflects that. It is pretty direct, it's pretty simple. So what I like to say is that when the full commission worked on this before, you removed a lot of language that was problematic. And I think what remains is exactly where we want to be. So I hope you'll take a look at this, and I hope we can vote on this tonight.
Okay. Bob?
I would like to suggest a make a friendly amendment. First of all, I think this is quite an improvement over the first draft. I think you've done an excellent job here. But I would add at the end of the second numbered paragraph, this sentence: the public advocate will not give legal advice. I think that was a good salient point that the prosecuting attorney made, and maybe I'm particularly sensitive to it because I am a retired attorney who's not supposed to be giving legal advice. And so when I see someone else getting in that jam, I don't like it. I would add that sentence. And then at the end, the thing in red, and county legislative authority, I would prefer that it say in accordance with state statutes and county ordinances rather than legislative authority, because it's not just their whim at some vote they might take, it's what they put down in the law, ordinances. So I would suggest those two
Well,
changes.
that pertains only to the whistleblower component. And this person is not dealing with the whistleblowers except to broker if the person calls in with a whistleblowing complaint to the appropriate department and official. So I don't know if that changes what you mean.
That does. I withdraw the second comment, but I still like adding the public advocate will not give legal advice at the end of paragraph 2.
Okay.
So is that acceptable or not?
I would like to refer to Paul and Patty and ask them how they feel about that.
Well, excuse me if I butt in here, Maureen.
No, please.
I'm looking very carefully at 2.5 pages of a legal opinion from Randy on this issue, and he's really covered it. And many, many times in several paragraphs, he refers to the legislative authority. I think that's one of the reasons why we put it in there. I'll just read one sentence he wrote out of many sentences on this opinion. Under state law, whistleblower complaints are I got a bad cough, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
My God.
I'll continue.
Beagle for sale. Beagle for sale.
I'll start again. Under state law, whistleblower complaints are directed pursuant to an ordinance established by the legislative authority. That's where most of this came from.
And
It is ordinance.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think Bob already said that he agreed with that. So, but that he wants to put will not give legal advice on here, which still isn't here, and maybe something we should put in there. And that doesn't refer just to whistleblowers. It's just trying to find your way around the county. This is for somebody to have a telephone number that they can call and say, I need help from the county. Can you tell me where to go? And then this person will help them get around where they need to go. It's just not that obvious for people who don't know much about the county government. So we really need somebody to advocate for the public to figure out what's going on in the county and how they can get their problem dealt with if they have a problem or question. It's really not to handle whistleblowers. It's, so we have to put that there. If we have a whistleblower coming on, we'll direct them to what you do with whistleblowers. But otherwise, it's just not that obvious. You go on the website, you think it's really clear, but then you realize, no, I'm not finding what I wanted to find because I don't know which button to push and which whatever. Can I call someone to help me out? That's all this person is.
Right.
I see Bill and Tom both had hands up.
I'd like to propose, at least for discussion. Bob didn't get a second, but I happen to agree with not giving legal advice. This is a problem that clerks have in the courthouse all the time. And it's harmless, but it's helpful. I would also suggest in the additional language at the bottom, rather than saying and subject to or in accordance with state statute and county legislation, just say after public advocate, subject to applicable law. The reason for this is that it's already clear that the WAC that's attached, it was provided, says the legislative authority deals with complaints directs the process by which complaints concerning the road program is handled. That's not something that is in accordance with this. It is a limitation on what we can say. And so I would just say, subject to applicable law after public advocate.
Which public advocate, Bill? I don't know where you want to place that.
I place it, should a whistleblower complaint be made to the public advocate, subject to applicable law, the public advocate will, because it's a limitation, not a grant. And that's why I put it in that way. But I also speak in favor of what Bob says. There's a lot of bad advice flying around. People can't help it. They want to help. And it's good. It's a good thing to put in saying, we'll not give legal advice.
So that might go in number 2, where the original
Yes.
language.
As Bob suggested, I'd add it to 2.
Okay.
That's a suggestion. I'm going to make that motion if it's in order, but I'm now doubting the order of my emotions.
Be careful the motions you make.
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead, Bob.
They might get seconded.
Go ahead, Bob.
And I would second Bill's motion to put in accordance with applicable law. You can never go wrong with saying in accordance with applicable law.
But subject to.
Subject
to, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, but I don't know that we need a motion on this, do we, Kevin? Can't we just say, this is just an improvement of the language?
You decide whether or not to accept it.
Well, if it's a friendly, we haven't made a motion on the table yet.
Well, no motion is on the table except mine at the moment.
I thought you didn't second mine, okay.
Could we
I made a motion.
Could we
but-
read the sentence as it will be, as suggested by Bill? So we can hear the whole complete sentence?
Okay, I can do this, what Bill has suggested, but I want to be sure to get in that the advocate will not give legal advice. So Paul, can you tell me where that you might see that in?
Well, that's what I'm having problems with. I'm not exactly sure where we're inserting this.
The first part is as Bob suggested, add the sentence that he added it to.
At the end of paragraph 2.
Is to paragraph 2. The
Okay.
second is to insert subject to applicable law after the first occurrence of public advocate in the added language.
I've got that.
Okay, that's my motion.
Okay.
Patty, do you have any comments about that?
I was just wondering if Maureen could share the new language.
Sure.
We could see that, what we're voting on, and I know Tom still has a comment.
Let me ask Tony if you would be kind enough to post it. God love Tony. He's helping me every chance here.
But the adjusted language.
Yeah,
If
I
you
know.
can share it.
I'll show you. So we will, here's number 1, which is already in the county, in the charter. Number 2 is our add-in, the public advocate shall. And at the end of it, where it says, who raise concerns and voice complaints, we will say, the public advocate will not give legal advice. And then the next sentence will be, should a whistleblower complaint be made to the public advocate, comma, the public advocate, subject to applicable law, will immediately refer the whistleblower complaint to the appropriate department and official in accordance with state statutes and county legislative authority.
Maureen, the motion was to insert the word subject to applicable law between the references to public advocate in the first line. After be made to the public advocate, comma, subject to applicable law, the public advocate will.
Right. There you go.
Well, I thought that's what I just read, but I'm sorry, I did not. Are you, okay. You're saying, should the whistleblower complaint be made to the public advocate, comma?
Yes.
Subject to applicable laws.
Subject to applicable law, the public advocate will immediately, is that how you want it?
Right, and with the appropriate department and official, period.
And leave out in accordance with statutes and legislative authority.
You don't need to add that because it's subject to applicable law.
Are you okay with that, Paul?
I am.
Okay, so, okay, got it.
And the red part too.
Yes,
Goes, yeah.
that goes, yeah, it's gone. Oh, look at that, Tony's working on it here.
There you go.
Perfect.
Oh, it's,
So
okay, cool.
Kevin, you want to call that, unless there's further discussion on that? You want to call the
I
question?
still, my hand is still raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Tom, go ahead.
I'm having great difficulty with this, having worked in courthouse for 4 years and spent a lot of time even after that. There's countless places to go for information, starting at the assessor's office, then the treasurer's office, then the auditor, and then upstairs the court clerk. Now, I was talking to Paul about this, and I said, if somebody came to the front desk there, and granted, the manager is probably not working the front desk, but someone is who could probably point this person in the right direction. If they had a real issue, it would go to the manager, it would go to Eileen or the treasurer or the court clerk. And depending on the issue, it would rise to the appropriate manager. For example, Maureen, you had a problem with the website. Wouldn't IT be the place to go? There was a guy whose name I forgot when we started this back in January that
Tom,
sort of was explained.
Tom, I think IT is the problem, that why it is so complicated.
Well, okay. My point is, and then you could go across the street if you happen to be over there and want to ask a question. We have the commissioner's office, the court clerk, the commissioner's clerk, which you know that job, you would know how to handle a difficult question. We have the elections manager, who's very sharp. So I just don't see that we need this advocacy position with all these knowledgeable people ready to talk to folks. And they have a counter there where they can do it, or a boss with an office 40 feet away that they can talk to. Okay, so I just don't see it. I think maybe it'll be a volunteer position, but it's going to end up costing money and confusion, and I'm against it. So there you go. Thank you.
Patty, go ahead.
Hang on.
Can I say
Patty, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh.
I have to run to go get my daughter, who's waiting on another island in the rain. So Maureen, your chair.
Oh, great.
It's not
Thank you.
raining.
Ah,
It's not raining here, but can I say something?
Patty, go ahead,
Wait,
please.
Tom, speaking from someone who really can't get around well, and I'm going to be at home and I'm going to be making calls. What I really want to see is a telephone number for the person who can tell me which officer should I be calling, or where should I go on the website and how to maneuver it. I can't go to I have gone to the courthouse and I went up to the clerk, who was great and helped me, and also did say, I'm not giving you legal advice. Didn't want it. But yeah, so there are all these knowledgeable people, but we don't necessarily, we need a front desk person, which isn't there. And that's what this, and it could be a volunteer position. They were suggesting to have one at each senior center, because it seems like senior centers, they have the most problems, but getting around with the county. We have very knowledgeable people in the county, and yes, they're happy to talk to us, but the people who don't know which ones to talk to are like me and my friends. They need somebody to go to first to tell them where to go second. That's all.
Okay. I think Janet had her hand up. Is that correct? Janet?
I think you mean Jane.
I thought I got a note saying it was you, Janet, but okay. Jane, is it you? Sorry. Would you like to say something? No. Jane.
Yeah, no, thank you, Madam Chair. I did have my hand up. I really do take Tom's point at the same time, and we did discuss this at length in previous meetings that we've had. And I think what could be of value in this position is the neutrality of the position, and the fact that there's a focal point that the public can go to, that they feel is safe to talk to, and actually without disclosing too much information. Just in the last 24 hours, there are 4 commissioners on this commission, all of whom are women, who were reached out to by a woman in this county who is feeling unsafe. And this individual reached out to us to express concern about how to deal with a very unsafe situation she's feeling or experiencing rather, and doesn't feel she can safely get help from the sheriff's office. In fact, feels threatened by deputies. She doesn't feel safe to get help from other places in the government. So the notion that this be a somewhat neutral, objective individual that can receive concerns from the public and complaints and what have you, and have those be channeled to appropriate places, that may not seem something that's needed by many. I think it is seen as something that's needed by enough, such that many of us as commissioners felt that this was important. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Is there anybody else with their hand up?
Can we move forward with the amendment motion, or can we just make a motion?
I think we have to vote on the motion on the table, do we not?
I so move the motion then.
Second.
That's Bill's motion, correct, for the change of language?
Oh, okay.
We haven't finished with Bill's motion.
No, that is either adopted or not adopted by the, well, actually.
It's a motion.
Now that Paul has made the motion to adopt this, and I've seconded it, Paul and I need to approve of the suggested changes. I'm out of it because I made one of the suggested changes. Paul needs to approve.
Can we end the screenshot, please, Tony? Thank you so much for helping. I really appreciate that. Okay, so is that correct, Bill? Do we kind of drop beyond what your motion was? And
I wasn't aware there was a motion on the floor already. In that case, my motion was a motion to amend. Otherwise, my motion is for the work as I had proposed the changes.
Right. Don't we have to do we have to vote on that is what I'm trying to get you to say. No?
We're going to have to vote on the whole thing. We might as well do it now.
Okay, fine.
All
right. So Bob has made a motion.
I'll second.
And Paul has seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion, which is, and let's make a motion here. Why don't you say it, Bob?
Actually, I think it was Paul that initially made the motion, and I seconded it.
Okay, to approve.
It would be
to public advocate with the changes. Is that right, Paul?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any further questions? I want to get these motions a little more filled out.
Madam Maureen, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I don't think there's a need to say with the changes. This is a new document that we're looking at. Bill was helpful in editing it, and others have. The motion is to move this document forward without having any extra words.
Okay.
But we all understand it is with those two phrases, sentences that we're at.
The amendment.
That's where we are.
I understand.
Okay.
Approve with the amendments.
So are there any further questions? All right. Let's call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so we have Patty, Paul, Sharon, Anne Marie, Janet, Liz, Olivia, Bob, Bill, Jane, and Dave Anderson, and myself. Have you got that? Minutes taker?
3, 4, 5.
I don't have all the names. I have to go back and get those later, but it was 12. Was it 12?
You want me to give it to you again? I'll give it to you real quickly.
I think it was 12.
I'll get it later, but go ahead. 12 people?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like 11. Is that
And
correct?
yourself.
Yeah, that's 11.
11 total. Okay.
Against those opposed? Raise your hand.
Maureen,
Yeah.
it's Liz. I had gone off screen and I was in favor of, that was the 12.
Okay, thank you, Liz. So there's 12. And any opposed? I see none.
Tom's got his hand up. Tom.
Is that a no, Tom?
That's a no.
Okay, thank you. No. How about abstentions? I see, of course, Richard Grout, and we have Tony. Okay. Okay. So that constitutes everybody that's here. We're missing only Kyle and
Dave.
Kevin.
Evan.
David. Kevin. Dave, Kevin, and
David
Kyle.
is left. No, David is here. Oh, David Dellendorf.
Dellendorf, David Dellendorf. yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, all right, the motion passes. Thank you, thank you. I'd really like to put this one to bed. Now, this is not supposed to be on the 22, but we shall see, okay? So Kevin has covered the next steps. Is everyone satisfied with whatever that was about? I know it was confusing. I hear you, I see you mouth moving, Bob, but you're muted. Go ahead, you have something to say?
The next steps were to deal with the question of how the recommendation was going to be delivered. And then we also have to deal with the resolution. Are both those things for the next meeting or
Yeah.
stretched out over 2 meetings?
I think it's going to be the next meeting, and I would suggest, and I've got a feel from all of you, and I've spoken to Dave Anderson, who really proposed it. I think we should have a meeting after the election. That should be our next meeting, and sometime that week, and I'm going to let Kevin organize that and approve it. Is that all right with you, Rick? Dick Grout, did I see you with your hand up?
Well, I think Kevin already made it clear that there are enough people who've notified him they're going to be away, that we were going to wind up after the election anyway.
Correct.
Okay, I'm
So,
good.
You're good. Is everyone sort of okay with that? If we have that, we schedule a meeting after the election. The election is what, the third, second, third? What is it?
Third.
Second.
Second?
Second Tuesday.
November 2.
So it's possible this might be scheduled for the third. So just put that in your
It
hopper.
could be a date when we know the numbers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And how about Dave, you got your hand up?
Madam Chair, yeah, thank you. I think we should look at scheduling it for the 10th, because the 3rd, we might not have a final results in the elections. And
Sounds good.
So
Sounds good.
Good idea.
I can make that I can make that suggestion to Kevin. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
All right, good. I see head shaking here. All right. Now,
5 minutes for my calendar to come up.
okay. New business, and Jane has already laid out her recommendation, and I think that would be on a very good piece for the next meeting to discuss the recommendations. Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just to discuss as a full CRC, if we would like to present verbally the recommendations to County Council that we have all agreed to, or not all agreed to, but we voted on in our last meeting. And rather than just presenting them in writing as part of a, sort of finalization of our work at some point in time, it is my view that such a significant amount of work and research and discussion, deliberation, et cetera, went into developing those recommendations that, as many of us know, some might have wished would have been amendments, that they are worthy of being presented verbally to the County Council, and that the County Council have an opportunity to ask us questions of clarification. It's my feeling that if we just present them in writing, the full impact of those recommendations, the reasons for them, may really not be felt by the County Council. So I thought it'd be worth talking about that in our next meeting.
I think it's a great point, and I think we should have that full discussion. So let's make sure that that gets put on the new business for next week, or not even a new business. It should be just listed as an item of topic. Go ahead, Tom. Tom?
Madam Chair, I'd like to bring up something that's really bothering me and some of my constituents. So I'm going to read my statement.
Okay.
Some of my constituents have asked to know more about the advice we have received from our legal counsel, Mr. Baylor. They feel that this info will help them to better determine how to vote on the CRC propositions up for vote in the coming election. In my experience, the very limited number of discussion issues which an elected body can keep from the public, namely real estate negotiations, personnel matters, and legal litigation situations. It seems to me that as we are doing the people's business, it is critical that our activities and information be open and transparent. I note from Commissioner Abreu's email that I just received the other day that she has been asked by a news reporter for info from our legal counsel as well. As a result, I'm asking the CRC to revisit the decision to keep private certain of the letters from Mr. Gaylord. We are reminded by his comments that release to the public of an attorney's advice to his client is up to his client, us. So accordingly, I would like to put on the agenda a motion, which I would make right now, or wait till next week, and I'll read it, the draft of it. I will move that all the written correspondence concerning our work from Mr. Gaylord and his office be made public. So we can talk about that now, or we can put it on new business. But I, as an elected official representing a lot of people that feel this way, I want to talk about it further.
Would you like to talk about it now? There's a motion on the table. We have to pay. Okay, we've got Dick Rout. Go ahead, Dick.
I would propose that we put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And I would also point out, Tom, I'm not talking about whether I favor it or oppose it. You're conflating two issues. The things you cited are the issues that are prescribed by law that are eligible for executive session. That has nothing to do with attorney-client privilege. So let's just make sure and be clear about that.
They are different issues. That is true. But I would ask if Tom would send that message out to each of us. I would like to read it carefully, Tom, if that's okay. Because I'd like to know exactly what you did say. And I am in favor of the discussion at our next meeting. It's not on the agenda now. It's a special meeting, and I would like it to see it on the agenda.
Are you,
Bill.
Accept that, Tom?
Oh, that's fine. I'll send this copy to the clerk to send out to everybody.
Good. So you're going to send it to the whole full CRC? Is that
That's what Bill asked for? Yeah, I don't see why I can't do that.
I think that would be great. And then would you, are you comfortable if, go ahead.
I don't want to violate the rules of putting all on the distribution. This is just going to be my thought, and I'm not asking for a reply. I'm just asking this matter be put on the agenda.
And if it's a motion, I second it.
Maureen, I've had my hand up if I could be called on.
I'm so sorry, Anne-Marie, I can't see you. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just am wondering why this isn't been made as a freedom of information request or something like that, which is, fully at the option of the people that are Tom is making a presentation on behalf of. And those issues before have come forward, and we've discussed that with the attorneys and made recommendations and come to conclusions. So I don't understand why this is taking a different format. That's the only thing I would say. Thank you.
Well, I can't imagine talking to one of my constituents and saying, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You have to make a freedom of information request. I want all his information from him and his office in a paper that people can read and they can consider when they're voting on our propositions.
Okay. I think in order, I think Sharon had her hand up before. No?
I'm going to withdraw my comment for now, but I do want to discuss this issue under new business.
Okay, then it's Bob is next. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think that Tom has every right to bring this up. I don't, I'm going to take a position opposite his eventually, I believe, but he has every right to bring it up, and it ought to be put on the agenda for next time. It's been moved and seconded, I believe, as a motion. We should put discussion of that motion on the agenda and go from there.
I guess I'm having a little hard time understanding if you've made it a motion, are you withdrawing it as a motion and you're going to allow it to go forward as a discussion on the next agenda?
Well, I'm happy that it lived a motion that I made today. Yeah, I believe I got a second as well.
Oh,
yes, you did. I seconded it.
Madam Chair, it was just a request to put an agenda item on for the next meeting. I made the same request. It didn't need to be a motion.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience that requests to be on the agenda are not responded to favorably. And so I'm asking to back up Tom on this and make sure that it gets on the agenda. We should
Okay.
vote to put it on the agenda.
Okay, then let's just go right there, right now. Is there any further discussion of that motion? Paul?
My question is, Tom, you wanted this information to be out or discussion to be had before the election in November, correct?
Absolutely.
But if our
Yeah.
next meeting is not going to be until after the
Yes.
election, how is that going to be helpful?
Oh, I guess I didn't quite hear when this meeting is going to be.
We were proposing to have our next meeting after the election is what I
Oh,
understood.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's got a
Well,
suggestion.
if we
Paul,
were,
that's a good point. Bob?
My suggestion then would be, that is a good point. My suggestion then would be to keep the idea of having a November 10th meeting where we cover all of the other things we've been talking about. But to go ahead, because Tom and his constituents deserve this, I think, have a special 1-hour meeting where we cover this issue and this issue only, and have it in enough time that it would have some effect, that it would be before the election, pretty soon.
Okay.
the ballots go out on the 13th, and I would really love to have this information available a couple of days after that.
Okay, all right, I hear you. And Janet's got her hand up. She's had her hand up. Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, I think we're talking two different meetings because I think Kevin said that we would have a meeting in the next week or so to discuss what Jane brought up in terms of when the resolutions are going in. And I think that was one of them, how we're going to present it, not when they're going to go in, but how we're going to present it. And I don't see why we can't have this on the agenda and just have 2 agenda items. It's like, how are we going to present the resolutions and this discussion? And that's it for the agenda items.
Okay. Dave?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we discussing having an executive session here? Is that what we're planning to put on the schedule? Or is
No,
it
we're talking about a full commission meeting for the discussion of and revisit of the decision to not release legal opinions. And I think that's a worthy discussion to have.
on the public record?
Yes.
Okay.
Go
Thank you.
ahead, Dick.
Could I propose that we have it a week from today?
Hold on a minute, Tom. Hold on. Dick,
I
go
just
ahead.
got recognized. I agree with Janet. If we have, today is only the 6th, we have time for a meeting before the election. Let's tell Kevin we want to schedule a meeting before the election for just those 2 items.
I think that's where we are.
I think that's what we're saying, exactly what we're saying.
Well, it's not what everybody's saying.
Oh, I'm hearing that. Go ahead, Tom. Now say what you're saying.
I would sure like people to be able to consider this the end of next week, when we have a meeting next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so when they get their ballots in the mail, they have this material to be able to consider.
Olivia, is Olivia still here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just on my phone.
Okay, so are we scheduled for a regular meeting on the 13th of October?
We can be. It would be a special meeting because we've kind of stopped doing regular meetings because we've stopped regularly meeting on Wednesdays, but we can completely host one next week. I think that would be a great idea.
Will you see that that's noticed, and we'll set that in motion right now, that will be the next meeting? And
Okay.
we'll have those 2 items on the agenda.
And that's it.
And that's
Only.
it. Yeah.
Then we'll have another meeting in November after the election.
And I'm saying that because I know that Kevin is leaving on a trip. I'm out of here the last 2 weeks. Several other people might have other commitments. So let's get this done and let's meet on the 13th of October. I'm good with that. Somebody else has their hand up. I think was it you, Paul?
I did, but I was going to ask if you could chair that or who would chair it, but it sounds like you're going to be here, so I put my hand down.
Yeah, I'm good with that 13th. I think we should do it. And Bill? Oh, no.
Maureen, I just have one more question.
Sure, go
which
ahead.
Is, if what I've heard Randy say on numerous occasions is that he represents each one of us, And I guess what I'm wondering is if you have a meeting and people can't be there, how can we agree to release information that has been provided to me and I say I'm not able to be at that meeting? How can you agree to release information that has been given to me as a commissioner? So I'm just asking a procedural question for those people that aren't able to be there on the 13th.
Well, I think what we should do to correct this is to have Randy present for this meeting. And,
Yes.
and then
Maureen,
he
may I
can field all
answer
these
that?
questions. Because
Maureen,
I
may
see it a little
answer that?
differently. I don't see it as narrowly as you're seeing it, Anne Marie. So
I
think
have,
we should,
I have been through this, and
Okay.
Randy does not represent us personally. If we
Yeah.
have a personal problem, even as an individual at all, we got our own lawyers. He represents the county. We are a county body. He represents this body.
yeah.
Some individual does something wrong on behalf of the county. He's defending the county, and the county will defend the individual if they were authorized to commit that act. If they were not, they're on their own.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Are there any further questions on this? All right. So, oh, Jane, go ahead.
No, just to clarify, are we saying that we want the prosecuting attorney at this meeting, at this discussion?
I think he's very much a part of this discussion. I do. What do you folks think?
A representative of his office, either him or a representative of his office.
I think we should
Could be.
extend an invitation.
Yes.
I think that we are conducting a meeting, a regular meeting or a special meeting, it's going to be called. And it's our discussion, but I think we should have Randy present or nearby to answer questions. The discussion is ours.
Yeah.
But he can help us sort through it.
Who's going to invite Randy?
Kevin.
Okay.
He doesn't know it yet, but he's gonna. I
I'll stand by.
At the end of the day, it's just my way.
That's what he gets for leaving.
Did somebody have their hand up here? Oh, Jane again.
Sorry, I had one more question, and that is, as we're all aware, I mean, this was some time ago, and this was literally months ago, that we had agreed that as a majority of the commission, rather, agreed that we would not be disclosing and posting, the advice of our prosecuting attorney to the public on our website, the way we are other information. So are we, in the next meeting when we're discussing this, are we going to be putting this to a vote again? Or I'm just curious, based on, and maybe Tom can clarify what he's wanting to see come out of this discussion. That would just be.
So let me just remind you of this. We did vote to hold back legal opinions as client as privilege information, but we made an exception, I believe, with Minor Lyle's request, and a couple of records were released. I don't know that all of them were.
No, we didn't.
I thought we voted on that.
No.
Yes, we
No.
did.
Vote against it?
No, we just let it go.
It had already been, he already had some information, I
Oh,
believe.
that's right. He got public, yeah,
In
okay.
pursuit of public records.
That's right, okay. Tom, go ahead.
I'm asking for the CRC to revisit that decision.
Yes.
I think that's a valid request, and I don't know what kind of motions we go through, but I would ask us to revisit and to reconsider.
The technical motion, Tom, is to rescind. Then the discussion happens after that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Robert's rule says.
Well, if that is so though, Bill, what we learned today, do we have to do anything special around publishing that topic?
We have to give notice because all our meetings are special meetings and we can't take any action on anything that isn't in the agenda. So we have to say there is consideration of rescinding.
Okay, got it.
that.
Okay, got it.
I'd like to point out one other thing though, for the benefit of everybody. The fact that a reporter has an opinion doesn't mean we can't, it's called a clawback. If we haven't formally released our attorney-client privilege, we can demand it back and that person cannot publicize what's in it. It's not a one-way trip.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? So let me just clarify that we are.
Maureen, I do have my hand up.
Who?
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Lafferty.
Oh, hi, Liz. I can't see you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Liz.
So I wanted to support Tom's motion to bring this back up for a vote again, that we get as much clarity. And my request is that we start the meeting, which is with as much clarity to what Dick, you were talking about, of what's we're looking to move forward and make public and what's not. If we can start with that level of clarity, that would be very helpful, and then go into the discussion.
Okay. Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's, Tom's point is well presented. I think we need to have, I mean, what is the secret that we're trying to keep away from there's really no secret that I can think of. The attorney-client privilege, and the attorneys in the room can probably help us out. But attorney-client privilege is to make sure that secrets are not presented. This is the public's forum. We're getting advice from the attorney regarding things that we're trying to put on the ballot or not, or recommend to be put on the ballot or not. So Tom's point is well made. We need to be able to discuss this and change whatever we've done in the past. In my mind, what is the secret we're trying to protect in this particular case? There isn't one. And since Tom has a motion, and I believe there's a second, we should just agree to vote on this and put it on the ballot put it on the agenda for next Wednesday and call it good.
Yeah, I think, are we gonna vote on this? Is that what we're gonna do?
We can't vote.
No,
because it's not
a
on.
request.
No, there's a motion or something that Tom presented that he wants something put on the agenda for next Wednesday. I'm not sure what the discussions was all about anymore. Is it going to be on the agenda next Wednesday or is it not?
I think the chair just declares that and then it happens.
I have declared that we have got a meeting that we are scheduled for the 10th of, the 13th, and we are going to have 2 items on it.
Correct. So then I think
the revisiting and the rescinding of that decision, and the discussion on the recommendations to the council. Those are the only 2 items.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So that based on that, I think we have already our task in place. Next Wednesday is the time we can discuss this, and based on Robert's rule, there are conditions of either a majority or a super majority will make this happen. But since we're advertising this, I think we're covered.
I think so too. That's my understanding.
Maureen, I think it is also important to make clear that we will then have a subsequent meeting on November 10th to cover remaining issues.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
I
Is
think
everybody
we got
all right?
Move
sense
to,
of the meeting.
I move we adjourn.
Hold on, there's a lot of people talking here. Let's just hold our breath for a minute. Is there anything that needs to be said before we adjourn? Okay, a motion for adjourn will be
So
welcome.
moved.
Yeah.
second.
1, 2 punch. Good.
Ah.
Well then, thank you all. All those in favor say aye quickly.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Thank you. It's moved in, and we're ready to meet again, and it will be the 13th. And I will communicate all of this to Kevin. Thank you all. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to